My name is Jodi Conibear Tangredi. I go by Jodi Tangredi, and I'm a consultant in the intercultural field. I actually was first introduced to both tools when I was doing a master's in intercultural relations out of Portland, Oregon, the Intercultural Communication Institute. And they were brought in as part of our global leadership course. And so I was able to get good familiarity with the kind of research that went into them and the background that went into them. I was also able to meet the designers behind the tools. And we were able to use them on ourselves as well as learn how to use them on others. And I really gravitated towards those tools because we were exposed to other tools as well. But what I particularly liked about those two was how they really get into the behavioral aspects of cross-cultural interactions. When I had to do my own research project and a thesis, I was really drawn to the global leadership literature that existed, that these tools are based on, and others are as well. But I was particularly fascinated by the skills and competencies of global leaders, or leaders, what makes them more successful in a global context as opposed to a domestic context, and what makes a successful expatriate, because I myself grew up in an expatriate family as a third culture kid, or TCK, and I felt that I had learned a lot of these skills and competencies sort of intrinsically as I had grown up. And I was really fascinated to see that this literature that really researched what makes a globally competent person, I felt that a lot of those competencies and skills were overlapping. I also was very interested in third culture kid research, and there really wasn't much on the third culture kid side in the workplace. But there was all this wealth of literature in the global leadership side and the intercultural effectiveness side. And I felt that the GCI and IES captured both of those really well, in the sense that I needed to know what kinds of skills and competencies are really effective internationally, and how would that overlap with a TCK type person in the workplace and the kinds of skills and competencies that they bring to the table. So I really like the blend of, okay, there's something already here that's researched, that's validated, that's psychometric, and that I can take and that I can use as a measurement of the third culture kid side in the workplace, because there were no good measurements to how do you measure their skills and competencies. So I found a good marriage, if you like, between the behavioral aspect of the skills and competencies that the COSI tools brought and what I needed. As part of the tool, they give behavioral descriptions. So you'll have, for example, when people talk about effective cross-cultural skills, you need to be open-minded or flexible or tolerant of ambiguity. But those are, in a sense, buzzwords. And what does that really mean in a job, for example? What does that really mean in a role you're going to take? How can you give an example of how you are open-minded or flexible? And these tools have a standard definition of that one word, open-minded or flexible or tolerant of ambiguity, or non-judgmental. And then they give a standard definition of what that looks like. And then they also give a definition of what that looks like if you're low in that skill set, or if you're high in that skill set. And then a fourth column describes what they call an excessive use of that strength. So sometimes we might have all heard of something like the Strengths Finders approach, where you figure out what your strengths are at work. But you also realize if you're really strong in something, there are downsides to it, flip sides to it. For example, if you're very, very flexible, you can also be seen as wishy-washy, right? Or slow to action. So those kinds of things were balanced out in these descriptions. And they're really impactful. I think that that's what people really want to hear. That's in the workplace. For my area of research with people who already had these multicultural skills, sometimes the difficulty is in being able to express that skill. Not just say I'm open-minded, but how does that matter to the person who's going to hire you or to the team that you're working with? So having those behavioral descriptions is by far my all-time favorite thing about the IES and the GCI. The GCI has a longer set of descriptions, a deeper dive, 16 of them, and the IES has less of those. So I use both to help with my research. Looking at how this demographic of people who are growing up already quite competent in these skills and competencies, the GCI and IES help people develop those skills because they have a personal development plan at the back, so you can assess, okay, if I really need to work in this one area, how am I going to do that? And it helps you formulate a plan for how to grow these competencies in the workplace. But it also helps you identify people who are already strong, who already come in with these high skills. The only other thing I would add to that is if you are working with people who are already very high in these skills, the IES and GCI provide this excessive use column where people can be mischaracterized or misunderstood. Their strengths actually can come across negatively, but if you're well versed in how to read these tools and these behaviors that people bring that are really strongly globally competent, then you know how to recognize the right people for the job and how to help promote them better within an organization, for example.